We've got our chrome sunglasses on. Yeah. We've got our chrome sunglasses on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can on the Twitch stream I think they're still playing the music though, right? Oh. Yeah, I can hear it. Sweet. Okay.
There's usually just a delay. Yeah, so nice.
Oh.
Should we introduce ourselves though? I'll go first. Hi, I'm Kira. You can find me at Kira Nelson on Twitter, and I'm currently working. I'm a queer cyborg game designer living in Columbus, Ohio. I'm currently working on a cyberpunk powered by the apocalypse game that is non-violent, feels focused, and activist, and it's called Snake. So I'm excited about that. That's my major cyberpunk project in games right now. Aside from Resistor, which is the cyber witch scene, I'm more curating that. We'll put useful things to that one. Fraser,
Fraser, I designed The Veil and currently designing Hack the Planet, and I do a bunch of other stuff, but that's how mostly know me. Oh yeah, I also have a blog and stuff as well. The Haven. Told you.
sounds great. Yeah.
Well, as I was saying, leather prescription, so I could go all day. Yeah, same thing. I can do both. I can do volleyball and then fly. Exactly.
I'll start.
That is new for me.
So we did.
You did. You run. Yeah.
I failed the sunglass challenge. It's true. But yeah. So the coolest cyberpunk thing I've seen recently. So this is an interesting genre debate. I'm curious to talk to you. But it is Janelle features them. And it's the first time Janelle Monáe has not played a character in her songs. Like, she usually has her character. I can't remember her character's name. It's like Mayweather. It's a new Mayweather. And so that's like, you know, when all of her songs are about that character, kind of like David Bowie style, right? And this is the first album about Janelle Monáe. So we get to see who she is. It's super cool. Hamish, you just watched it. Hold on. There was also a Yoko Ono. Wasn't there? Prep? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And the cops, you know, are the bad guys, of course. And there's like these, yeah, the police drones are super cool. It's really funny because I watched this right before I was while I was prepping to run my game sync on Twitch this past weekend yesterday, and I was like I was like, these are characters in my game. This is like what my game is about. It's kind of a little bit more you know, the early 2000s Liam Gibson cyberpunk setting, like the pattern recognition where you're not super far in the future, you're just 10 seconds in the future. And you know, I feel like it fell very squarely into that category of cyberpunk, although I don't know how cyberpunk and Afrofuturism cross over. Like, I feel like Afrofuturism is a little bit more space opera, even though I know the definition of Afrofuturism is just basically dealing with issues around you know, Afrocentric culture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like how in, go ahead, Fraser, I'm sorry.
the only stuff that I've consumed with it is like Black Panther, which was not too much of it, but very cool.
It is like a
And
magical hidden city, though.
yeah, yeah. And oh shoot, I can't remember how to pronounce her name, but what is it? The author of Binti and those
Oh, yeah.
three novellas.
I
I
have
can't
not
remember.
read those, but actually some of my friends recommended them this weekend.
Very good and really small, like easy to consume stuff.
Because
But
she
I
is
also,
African, I think.
yeah, but I remember actually, I follow her on Twitter and she said that she refused that label because it was like problematic or something like that. I can't
It's
remember.
colonialist naming standard bullshit or something.
Something. I can't remember exactly, but I
Yeah,
remember she had posted something about that and I thought that was interesting. But
that is cool.
I know I would probably classify the Summer Prince cyberpunk under Afrofuturism because it's like, well, maybe not Afrofuturism, but kind of. A black author wrote it, and it takes place in Brazil in a giant megaplex pyramid, and it's matriarchal because men ended society, and so only women are allowed to hold power. And it's called the Summer Prince.
crossovers are interesting, and the places in between genres is interesting too. Like why strictly be one genre basically? But I mean, I wonder if part of Afrofuturism is just like cyberpunk and a black creator. Like I wonder if that makes like you know, Mike Pondsmith and cyberpunk tabletop games kind of Afrofuturist.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if, like, well, what 2077 looks like. And I guess it depends how much creative control he has, but I'm super interested to see what that video game looks like after 2020 and now, and if he has as much art direction say and narrative structure say and stuff. I wonder if it is going to have that kind of a take on it and have more of an Afrofuturism thing going on. That would be really cool.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Afrofuturism is kind of the shit right now in American culture.
Yeah. Well, I still think it's funny that there's all those really annoying people on Twitter who were like, Black Panther's not going to make any money. And now that it's like the third most grossing film of all time, they're like, oh, it's because all these people bought some tickets for like Indiegogo fund me things for black kids and communities and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that must be why it's the third most grossing movie of all time.
In the world.
In the world. Yeah. Yeah. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so I don't know. Janelle Monáe, I think she should just be in every cyberpunk thing, you know, from now on. Like she should be the actual lead actor in whatever it is. Like not only because I mean, like we need more ladies in cyberpunk as like leads who aren't like white appropriators.
Did she have a good part in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the Amazon series? The kind of cyberpunk some of the episodes were. Do you know?
I didn't watch all of it yet. I've only seen I haven't seen her episode. I actually didn't realize she was in it or forgot she was in it.
Yeah, she's in one of the later ones, if I remember correctly. And I mean, some of them are pretty hit and miss, but the one where the Hamish, have you seen any of these episodes, by the way?
Same.
Oh, okay.
That's the one with the dream where she's like a cop and
oh, is the one where they're like, what's more plausible, that you're a lesbian, hot lesbian with a car, and or with a flying car, or you're like unhappy in this life or whatever. I love that episode so much. That wasn't actually must be the first that must be the first episode in the US. In the UK that was like the 6th episode or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe they want to lead with a strong one on Amazon Prime.
Well, that series is definitely hit and miss. I would say like half of the episodes were amazing and the other half was like, oh, well, for one, I literally fell asleep during one of them. I woke up with drool coming down the side of my face for one of them. And then the lesbian cop one, I was like, this needs to be a blog article because I loved it. So, yeah.
It was really interesting. It was a really interesting intersection of like mental illness, like PTSD, because it focused on like depression and PTSD mostly, and like identity, like queer identity versus, you know, I guess Black identity, like different marginalized identities and how that like those intersections. Yeah, it was really smart.
yeah, like the idea that like it made it even more complicated and interesting that the person dreaming about being a like white hot lesbian chick was someone who was marginalized in the quote unquote real world. And then like it was so smartly done that I kept flip-flopping. I was like, no, that's the real one. No, that one. No, that one. So, and that like almost never happens with me for visual media. Like I watched The Usual Suspects with my dad, and he was like, "You're never gonna guess the ending," and then of course that made me guess the ending, right? So.
Yeah. It's like the
Yeah.
yeah. I think that was the strongest thing about Blade Runner 2049. I had weird feelings about them. I know that they put a lot of work into them, and it's not like just the typical CGI work, but I don't know that it showed. I didn't really like the aesthetic. So it was weird. I had complex feelings.
I wrote like a long blog post about this interesting thought experiment that I had about that movie because they handled the whatchamacallit, the sex worker scene so poorly between the women.
God.
Yeah, but the
It was
interesting
bad.
yeah, the interesting thing about it with me that the moment was like trying to show Joy as like being human, even though it was like a shitty reaction.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing is because we react so strongly to. Oh, here they can't hear you.
Yeah, on the Twitch stream, someone said, "Who is in the pink glasses? Can't hear the mic."
Oh no.
Yeah, somebody was. Yeah, that's what I tried to fix. I think I fixed it now.
But continue.
Yeah,
The mic has been.
yeah. So
this weird thing, so
the thought experiment that I had with it was, what if the narrative had been intentionally crafted that way so that the audience essentially writes off Joy before the she is actually like killed in the actual narrative of the film.
Yeah.
And so like in a sense it makes you complicit in killing Joy before she becomes real, because part of her programming is that she becomes whatever is projected onto her, and he wanted her to be human, so she became more human for him. And then her reaction is sort of the male typical reaction that we would expect, not a typical female reaction.
Yeah.
So then everybody in the theater's like, oh, fuck this character. She's not going to do anything for the narrative. We completely write her off. Then she's killed, and we kind of have this weird cyclical relationship with the film by the end where we're also complicit in killing Joy in the narrative because she said this one shitty line to the other female character.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. Also, it is just a shame because the legacy of the original Blade Runner it has like a sexist legacy. It's got a lot of gender issues in it, but at least it has Pris. Like, like the sex worker, the sex doll cyborg in the original Blade Runner movie. She's like a badass. She's still got a lot of problematic tropes from the 80s. She doesn't really talk much. She has a crotch leg strangle move, which is like okay. And she's definitely still sexualized by the camera. Like she is like a weird doll character. But I just kind of liked her. I liked her. And I like cyborg ladies, but there's also a huge history of problematic cyborg ladies, like just being not kind of using that metaphor as well as we could. Not, they're often sexualized, they're often dolls, they're often sex workers. And like the fact that the new one didn't do anything to change any of that, but actually made it worse was a huge bummer.
Yeah, even in the original, Sebastian initially says them or whatever, and she's like the one that says, I think therefore I am Sebastian, right?
Yeah.
And Roy is like, very good, like you shouldn't basically show your prejudices, and they do that like right before they die basically. So yeah, I agree. There was definitely some things that they could have changed about 2049. Like they could have definitely um, not just alluded to in the background about what was happening to marginalized folks and make it foreground and not like
Mhm.
be like, well, obviously all the like there's a blackout and marginalized people in this movie throughout it get killed.
Yeah.
Nostalgia's bad, we killed it. Like sure, but I mean also you could have a pair of balls and have a marginalized character and maybe
Mm-hmm.
not all of them are dead and you know that
Yeah.
so it was a little frustrating, but
Yeah.
overall I was still happy with the movie because ironically because the marketing was bad for it because like the trailer I was expecting like an action flick and stuff and instead
Yeah.
I got like a very slow paced I loved the soundtrack and it was just like not at all what I was expecting, so I think it like leveraged that when I went to
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Hamish, you liked it?
I liked it. Yeah. I
Hamish
liked it
triggered.
in particular because one of the things.
Can't hear him. But I bet that means that the other people can hear him, but we
Yeah.
can't.
I think. Oh, God.
Can-
He's talking
can-
right
Okay,
now.
how about now?
Audience, can you hear?
Can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah,
You can hear
yeah,
me?
we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. There's some weird
The
shit
sigh.
going on. This might involve.
That's
This
I wish
I'm
I
really
can we
quiet?
I wonder if we can listen to
Oh,
the Twitch.
I wonder.
Oh, to hear him. That's clever. Yes.
Oh,
I'll try that.
it is. Okay.
But then we
It's
would hear
like-
ourselves too.
It's also a time delay.
Yeah. Hamish, let's see. Say stuff and then I'll
I
see.
am talking right now. How can you hear me? Can you hear me? Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Nope.
Yeah, I can hear him on the stream. He's just real quiet, like they say.
Really quiet and on a
Mhm.
10-second delay.
He's
or
saying
something.
ground control to Major Tom.
Yeah, I can hear that.
I don't know. Jesus.
Oh no.
I feel like there
You
was
could
something.
you could type to us maybe and pop it up in the chat on the screen, like as you're talking.
I think
Well,
you drastically
trying to figure it
underestimate my
out.
typing. Underestimate my typing speed.
I
That's
guess while
coming
he was
here in
just
10
figuring that
seconds.
out, we can keep talking about Blade Runner.
Well, have you? I wanted to ask you, Kira. Have you played the Red Strings Club?
No, I don't know what that is.
Ooh, you should play that game. It is so good. It's non. You don't do violence, but there is violence in the game.
Yeah,
And
that's
What about now?
It's a cyberpunk game on Steam for like $12.99. There's like 3 developers. It's an indie sprite game, and one of the developers is trans.
cool.
And it's super interesting. You work in like, well, it shifts from different characters, but you at one point have to install all these augmentations into different people to make their lives like quote unquote better for
Mhm.
what they say that they're doing. And like a CEO wants to run a company or whatever, so you install a social augment and he gets lots of followers, and eventually you're like augmenting him throughout his entire life. And at one point though, someone kind of infiltrates it and changes these mods to make it like socially justifiable. And at first it's like all just this 20-minute mini game at the beginning, and eventually though that becomes the framework for the entire rest of the story. So if eventually what I did with that CEO is the cyberpunk person who infiltrated and changed those augs for me, I installed like a now you feel bad every time you like harm a person or whatever, like and it like kills their ambition, I think was a specific aug or something. But then later there's like all this weird conspiracy things happening, and you have to like you're an investigator and you go figure this stuff out. And you switch between this investigator guy and a guy who works at the Red Strings Club who knows how to like mix this drink that can elicit a specific emotion from people, and it's how you kind of like interrogate people. It's really cool. Like I think that the more I describe it, the more stupid it sounds, but it's actually really good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Can everybody on the stream hear me as well?
Yeah, that's the
Be
real
a couple-
question.
Be a couple seconds, I think.
And also, what were you describing there, Fraser? I missed the. Was that a
The
game?
Red Strings Club on Steam. Yeah,
The
it's like
Red
12
Strings
bucks.
Club. Nice.
Yay! Okay, everybody can be heard.
Yay! All right, cool. Red Strings Club. I'm writing that down. Have you guys played Valhalla Cyberpunk Bartender?
I
I haven't
have,
yet.
It's on my
purchased-
list.
but I have not played it yet. But it's on my list, and
Yeah, I heard it's really good, and we would probably all love it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I might stream it sometime over the next month or two.
That'd be
I mean, I'll see if it's good streaming.
Yeah.
Well, I think it must be because Adam Kobold did. He
Adam
streamed it.
Kobold could stream a block of cheese growing mold, and it would be
Okay.
entertaining.
Okay.
Like, no illusions about my comparatively ability. I mean, maybe I could stream a book of Livy just sitting there, and it would be interesting, but I don't know if I could necessarily hold down a Cyberpunk Bartender game. Maybe.
Yes,
We'll see.
you can. It'll
Yeah,
be
you
great.
can just reference really old Gibson stuff, right? Whenever the long parts are coming.
Yeah.
Touche.
It's
Yeah,
it's
just-
hard for me right now because I can't play stream games on my like Ubuntu laptop. Like does not like going through the wine connector.
Hmm.
So I did download Dream Daddy, and that's the last one I tried to actually play on stream.
Nice.
I did, and it
I
was
am-
amazing.
I'm looking forward to Boyfriend Dungeon. That
I don't know what that is.
it's
No.
it's a dating sim where you are going through a dungeon and you're dating swords. So
Oh yeah.
like that's just gonna be awesome.
I
Yeah.
saw that. It's like you're dating your weapon, kind of like I don't know. That's like there's like an anime about that where it's like the soul blade or something.
I have not seen it, but I would believe it for sure.
Yeah.
It's a genre, girls dating swords.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Well, there's that Secret Six character too. She's like the Japanese character who has the katana. I think maybe she has the katana. And has her dead husband is in the katana, and like everyone she kills goes in the katana with her dead husband. I guess.
Wow, that sounds crowded.
This is like vaguely familiar now.
Yeah.
So back before we had the audio, we're in the middle of having the audio hiccup. I was about to say about Blade Runner that the thing I liked is that I was worried that it was gonna ruin the ambiguity of the first movie, and I don't think it did.
No, yeah.
For part of the reason that I gave before, that I think everything in the second movie was ambiguous. So I liked that, and I like the visuals. And I mean, I also liked Only God Forgives, so I am basically into anything that Ryan Gosling is in. So
I am too. I'm a sucker for Ryan Gosling. I mean, Drive.
yeah,
I love Drive, but I've never heard of the whatever one you just said. What is it?
Only God Forgives is
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just it's hard to describe.
It's like the
'Cause
spiritual successor of Drive.
Oh.
Yep,
That's
It's
yep,
got the same
that's true.
aesthetic, the same director.
Yeah.
I hear there's more incest. I haven't seen it yet.
I don't know if there's actual. It's been a while since I saw it, but there's certainly like mummy issues for sure. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, Ryan Gosling and Nicholas Winding Refn, like they're just so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that combo.
Yeah, they're a dream team. That's like it's like
Yeah.
David Lynch and the guy from Dune. I can't remember, Kyle MacLachlan.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just like the two of them. It's like Ryan Gosling is like the embodiment of all of Refn's like homoerotic tension that
Absolutely.
he like needs to put on the screen.
Uh-huh.
And like I actually watched this really cool YouTube video about Refn, and he's colorblind.
I remember you tweeting about that.
Yeah, and so the whole video is basically about, and you know how he uses those. I mean, he like almost created the bisexual neon color palette, like the blue and the pink and bright reds and greens, just like everywhere. And he started doing that because he's colorblind.
So does he use those colors because he can see those colors, or does he just kind of like, know what the colors are or something, and then put them together because he thinks they'll sound cool without seeing them?
I think that he just uses whatever colors give the highest contrast
Nice.
in what he can see, and yeah, because he didn't actually detail it because he's definitely a bit of an egoist.
Right.
And when
Well-
I saw that tweet with the bisexual lighting with the 3 movies, I literally my jaw dropped and I was like, "Oh yeah!"
I don't think I've seen this thing.
No,
Bisexual
there's
lighting.
it went viral. I think for
It's kind of a joke. It's like scenes from like 4 different movies featuring bisexual characters,
Mhm.
and then showcasing the very popular retro blue pink neon behind them, and they're like, "Look, it's the bisexual color palette."
So that's
Yeah.
also the color palette in Dirty Computer, I guess, or in a bunch of them.
Yeah, it's in Dirty Computer. I actually watched Desert Hearts, like a lesbian movie from the 80s, from the first time. It's the classic.
Mhm.
And it's in there. Like the 2 ladies
See?
are in a car, and they're in this hot car, and there's like bisexual lighting from the bar behind them, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, I think that it's honestly a secret that straight people don't know about until you see this tweet. It actually was that GIF with the guy going like, "Wah!"
Yeah.
That was me when I saw that. I was just flashing back to, because I remember a lot about most of the movies that I watch. I have this weird brain that retains all this really small, weird, stupid information from it, and I was just flashing back in my RAM brain to all these movies and the bisexual lighting, and I was like, wow, this is a real thing.
Well, from a cyberpunk perspective, Only God Forgives is pretty great as well. It's sort of this
Oh, yeah?
Bangkok underworld with a ton of neon and a lot of
Oh,
rain.
cool.
So yeah, from that, there's it's contemporary, I think, but visually definitely worth a look.
Yeah, I mean, that checks 3 cyberpunk boxes, I feel like. Like, if you got rain, neon, and underground's Yakuza analog or gangster analog.
Indeed. Yeah. What's the thing that you wanted to talk about, Hamish?
Yeah.
Because you reminded me, I guess I'm reading Vacuum Flowers, which I know you have a copy right there, Fraser, as well, because you showed it
Yeah.
up last time.
Yeah,
But I'm
right on.
only I guess I'm a third of the way through, so I don't really have too many thoughts about it yet. I really like the kind of wetware thing that they have going on, with sort of mental reprogramming that is visually represented, I guess, to society by some kind of face paint. And it's a little bit unclear to me if there's going to be some exposition later on that sort of explains a little bit more about it. I've just kind of picked up from context, so that's kind of cool. It's very it's very. There's a person there. What do they describe themselves as? Shit, I forget. They're a person who who rents themselves out essentially to be imprinted with another personality for personality testing to corporations. And then and I can't remember what the name is. Can you remember, Fraser?
I haven't actually read it yet, but I just got it a month ago. I know.
Wow,
I literally-
everything I thought I knew about you, Fraser, is a lie apparently.
Well, I own it. I just haven't bought it, or I haven't read it yet. But it sounds a lot like John Stone's setting in Cascade, right? The day trippers.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if that's where he got. Well, I think he said that it was more of an info. For him, it was more of a being John Malkovich inspiration thing.
Right. Yeah, there's a bunch of different places that kind of thing could come from. Yeah, I forget the name they give to it in here. I started reading it on the plane to Albuquerque for the conference I was at a couple of weeks ago, and then I read a little bit more on the way back, and then I have been kind of busy over the last couple of weeks, so I haven't got back to it, which is not a reflection on the book so much of it is a reflection on my fiction reading habits. So sorry, Michael Swanwick.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean, it's been a while. I don't think.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about the author either, but they seem kind of cool from what I've seen. Like, did a bit of looking online.
Yeah. I
Female
have
protagonist, which is rare for 80s cyberpunk. Like, it's 1986, I think.
Did you read the one that always is recommended to me for that aesthetic is Glass Cannon, Glass something.
I have no idea.
Oh dang, I don't have it on my shelf at the moment. But it's like Glass Hammer or whatever, where that guy is racing across the desert and it's something going on. It might even be the same author, but I just wanted to see if either of you.
It's not,
think
not
it's Glass
Hardwired.
Hammer. I think it's Glass Hammer, to
Okay.
be honest.
And it's from the 80s?
Yeah, it's from the 80s. Like, if you see this picture, you're like, damn, that is some 80s.
I haven't read too much 80s cyberpunk, actually. I mean, kind of just like, the Gibson Sterling stuff I've read. And one of those is steampunk properly. It's like the difference engine, so I don't know if that counts.
Yeah. Here it is. It is The Glass Hammer by K.W. Jeter.
Cool.
Yeah, I wanted to see if either of you had recommended it, because I've had bad associations with people recommending me cyberpunk books.
Oh no.
like people recommending me Snow Crash and the Diamond Age and just fucking vehemently hating those books so much.
I have not read Snow Crash. It's been recommended to me a lot too, though.
Yeah,
but it's like
yeah,
a
I
type
bet
of
it had.
from people whose tastes like it's cyberpunk for sure, but like it's just not aligned with my taste. I think as much.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to read a guy who doesn't understand how to write female characters, then read that.
Cool. I don't know. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cool things about Snow Crash, but yeah, that's fundamentally fairly fair.
You have to be able to get over that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also Snow Crash is a satire of cyberpunk.
Yeah, it
Oh.
totally is.
So
I didn't realize that.
yeah, because it's 1992, so cyberpunk is dead then, of course, right? As
Yeah.
established by Bruce Sterling, I guess, in Mirror Shades in 1997. I don't know. Is that the first time it was pronounced dead? Who knows? Whatever.
Pretty much.
Necromancy is alive and well in fiction, that's for sure. There's another one, another earlier, I think, parody of cyberpunk. Let me see if I can see it on my shelf. Like Head Crash, I think it's called, or
Head
something.
Crash? Like Max Headroom. Head Crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Head Crash by Bruce Bethke. I haven't read it yet.
haven't
I
read it
understand that is also a parody. I'll definitely. It's on my like classics to read shelf, but I haven't got there
Classics,
yet.
yeah.
Well, I've got my cyberpunk shelf that is like half powered by the apocalypse cyberpunk games, and then the other half is cyberpunk classics that I might legitimately need to look at in my research, and then all of the rest of the cyberpunk is on another shelf that's a bit further away from my desk.
Yep. I now have a backlog of cyberpunk books to read as many that I have read, which is scary.
I feel like that's the way books are. They just kind of like breed quietly over there and then sneak up on you and then fall on you like some sort of giant creature.
Yeah.
Cyber stuff that I haven't read that's on my shelf is like theory. Like I have this book right here. It's like cyber sexualities. I think I've only read half of this.
I think I have that on my office shelf.
Yeah, I
Oh, yeah.
love the theory. A reader on feminist theory, cyborgs in cyberspace.
Did you read Mirror Shade Women? That's a good paper. It's available for free online because it was published in a Canadian university that believes in sharing information.
Oh my god. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, I'm coming off the heels of that fucking Rutledge announcement, right? Where they're like, come learn game design. And then I look it up and they're like, $192 for a hardcover. That seems reasonable. And the whole time
Yeah.
I didn't see that one, but yeah, I was just really excited today because I got my review copy of a book that is like $200, and I'm
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. From
Yeah,
Routledge?
I think what
no,
you're
this one's
talking
from
about-
another academic press, but that's the way it goes. Like, you want an academic hardcover, you're up in the hundreds of dollars, which is why nobody will buy my book.
Yeah, that's some bullshit. I'm sorry.
But it's
But you
economies
should-
of scale because they'll make like 300 copies.
Yeah.
I have, but I mean, within a week I had already probably sold more copies of The Sprawl than I will ever sell of any academic book that I publish, unless I publish some sort of like popular translation or popular history of some sort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
goddamn system.
The Mirror Shade Women, though, you would like a lot. It's a academic who traces a line of feminism throughout the first wave of cyberpunk, because all the men in her life clearly have said that it doesn't exist, and she's just like, here's all these feminist people, and like it's a clear line throughout all of these titles, and it's really good as just a reading list, being like, sweet,
Huh.
if I want to find cyberpunk titles that have feminism in it, then
Yeah.
it's just like a huge list of it, and it's actually well written to the point of actually being like a fun read. And
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
she wrote a couple academic papers all on cyberpunk, all for free, before retiring from academia. So
We should, as sort of an offshoot of this show, actually, we should make a bibliography of cyberpunk, like, not fiction so much, but articles about it, whether they be academic or semi-academic or whatever.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always reference Donna Haraway's Cyborg
Cyborg.
Manifesto.
Yeah.
It's like that changed my life. And
Yeah.
it's an easy read. Is the other thing. It's like it's not like a book. It is heavy academic language, but it's only like 20 pages, I think. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and as
Wow.
Cathone Stone on the chat says, you're not supposed to buy academic books. You're supposed to go to the university library and photocopy them.
Yeah. If you
So
have
yeah, or
access to
scan
one.
them because
Yeah.
it's the 21st century, man.
I feel like
Yeah.
there was like a dystopia meme going around like just yesterday that I saw, and it was like one of them was like, give your blood for can't afford your books, give your blood for books this semester or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
great.
that's the way it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, like that paper though made me find He, She, and It, and that's a fantastic book.
I love that
Madge
book.
Piercy. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that paper was like, yo, here's some feminism, and then as soon as I started reading this book, I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. It's a little slow sometimes, but I really love how it also showed a Jewish cyberpunk setting. Like,
Yep.
that's the first time I'd seen that, and that was rad.
Yeah, and it's
Is that
it's
novel?
so like it's so like as soon as you start reading, you're like, oh right, Gollum,
Yeah.
Android, it's all fucking right there, but
Yeah, it's very obvious. It's like- and the cool thing is that that's not really what the book is about. Like, it's more about community and family. But the fact that they use the golem is like an android metaphor. Super cool. Super cool.
Mhm. Yeah, what were you saying, Hamish?
Is that a novel? He, she, and it?
Yeah, it's a novel,
Yeah.
and it's quite cheap. You can get the hardcover now. Like it's one of those published in the '90s, and now you can get it for like a penny and shipping off Amazon. And
Yep.
yeah, and I think that's how I got it actually. I think I paid like $6 for the hardcover or something like that, and it's like brand new quality. And yeah, that book was great because the first thing it does is show why what like a possible future of globalized corporations look like, because they immediately are in a custody battle with the main character and her husband, and the husband gets it because he's a higher worker than him or than her, and he doesn't even really want the kid. It's just like a power play, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought
And
that
then-
was very clever.
I thought it was too. I also like how they talked about the enclaves. Like, this is where it was just like a very simple class way to illustrate class without having like a big bad corporation necessarily, but that rich people live here and they work for this company, and poor people live over here, and anyone who wants to be outside the system, you're shit out of luck. Good. Hope you have scientists working for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It was a really interesting story, and I liked how it breaks up her chapters with like Jewish history, basically, like tricks
Yeah.
you into learning a whole bunch of history, and then it applies it later. At the first chapter, I was like, this was kind of like, it's interesting, but I don't understand why it's here. And then by the end, you're like,
Yeah.
clever girl.
Yeah. I didn't know any of that about Jewish history and the Jewish ghettos, and so I thought it was super cool to learn. I was like, yeah, leveling up in my Jewish history.
Yeah, a significant level up, since I do like nothing. The only thing I knew was from watching like that comedy Keeping the Faith, where Ben Stiller's the rabbi, and yeah, and like, I mean, that was a pretty good movie, I thought, but it definitely doesn't tell you too much.
I'm just laughing at the thought of somebody learning about Jewish history from a Ben Stiller movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Levels.
yeah, well, I'm good at the jokes.
Another good Jewish history is on Amazon Prime, and it's called Transparent. Like a Jewish family and like an older character who is like the family's dad, who transitions into their mom, and how they all kind of deal with it in like a Jewish context. It's kind of cool.
Ooh.
Good title pun. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Transparent.
Yeah. I did you guys watch Humans? I thought that was really good as well. The BBC show. It's quite good, I thought.
No.
It is. It's hard to get in North America. It's like, it's like when Sherlock came here and we were 4 years behind.
Yeah.
It's like same thing. It's on season 3 now, but all of the main characters are actual robots that become like autonomous, and basically the relationships that they have with both the family members, or what it might be like to have like a family of autonomous robots, and they're always like kind of being hunted, but also there's totally like the creep factor of the really attractive human who's a nanny, of course, and the dad's all like, oh yeah, and all this stuff, and he's like, oh, I fell in love with a robot, but meanwhile being a shitty human being. And I thought it was done quite well, and it humanizes things, and yeah, I've only heard really good things about it from other people as well, but it's like something you wouldn't really have heard of. I think I just bought them on iTunes because I couldn't find them anywhere else. Like if you Google it on Amazon, at least in Canada, you can't even buy it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like a better Dollhouse, like a better Joss Whedon's Dollhouse.
Yeah, except they're all like actually outright robots too. They're not like humans with programming with yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I guess like kind of what's that one with the clones? And it's like a lady who plays all the clones of herself, and it's also from the UK.
Oh, the one about Wednesday.
Yeah.
That one? On Netflix? Oh, because
No.
that was bad. Don't watch that one.
Orphan Black is what I'm thinking of. Orphan Black.
Oh, Orphan Black.
I
That
haven't
was
seen
a
that
good
yet.
show.
Yeah.
Where is Wednesday, I think it's called. It was out on Netflix, and that was trash.
I don't know what that is. I hadn't even seen it.
Yeah, I liked it. The premise was attractive, but and it looked pretty cyberpunky, especially from the trailer. It's got like all 7 of the clones jumping over like a roof or whatever, Matrixy-ish. But in theory, it was just like the most boring. Or in theory, it was good. In practice, it was like the most boring movie that I've ever seen in my life. But I wanted to watch it because it had the Swedish actress from the original girl with the dragon
Girl
tattoo.
Dragon Tattoo, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. She's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Well, in the movie, she was a good actress, but she couldn't save that shit. That's for sure.
Always a shame. I feel like it's like extra sad if like a lady lead thing, a lady lead genre thing fails. I'm just like, oh no, no, save it somehow.
Yeah, and the premise is really cool. I was like, wow, you had to try very hard to make this suck, and you did it.
Yeah, speaking of things with like good premises, maybe, but that might end up being disappointing. Like, how are you guys feeling about Detroit Android City or whatever that David Cage?
Oh man.
I played
Yeah.
the demo and the demo was pretty cool, but then I like heard that it was David Cage and I don't know a lot about him, but I'm like my enthusiasm for that thing which I was
Yeah.
previously going to pre-order is like a little bit on the wavering.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about his games is you wait a year and they're like $20. So.
I mean, that's any game, isn't it?
Yeah, his tend to be like day one pre-orders and then nobody else, like all the enthusiastic people pre-order it, then everybody else is like, no. Like whatchamacallit, the Rain one, Heavy Rain.
Oh, Heavy Rain.
right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
I
and
mean,
Indigo Prophecy and stuff like that. But yeah, with all that stuff about his workplace, there's too many like corroborating
Yeah.
things that I
Right.
that I doubt it's like made up. And then he's like, also, I'm going to sue you.
Yeah, like suing. No, I mean, regardless of the facts of the matter, suing journalists is never really a particularly good look.
Yes.
What was the issue? Was that there was like some kind of story about how terrible he was treating his workers or something?
Yeah,
What
which is
and
kind of like
and-
not really news in the game industry.
yeah, well,
yeah,
they-
yeah. I mean, it's like all of the game industry right now. I feel like,
Yeah.
like
well,
bad news just came out about that other Cyberpunk game that was really fun. Read Only Memories. That company
Oh.
got.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
I
an
didn't
indie
know that.
company.
Mm,
Oh.
And,
yeah.
yeah.
They work on the
I
same
don't
kind
know.
of like model of, yeah, just exploitation and get rid of people before Christmas and all that rubbish.
Well, the big thing though was that they had revealed that one of the animators, not animationists.
Totally an
That's not a word.
animationist, man.
One of the animators had taken a whole bunch of the 3D models of like Ellen Page and all these other
Oh,
ones and
yeah.
done like weird fascist crap to them.
Whoa.
Yeah, like put like a Nazi, whatchamacallit, that thing that Adolf
Yeah.
Hitler had there on some
Oh.
other people, and then also like
Moustache.
Ellen's Page made her like half naked and walk around and do all these weird things and stuff, and then David Cage's response was like, well, we don't know anything about that. What he does at home is like his own business or whatever, but also I'm
Okay.
suing you.
All right,
Yeah.
well, I'm glad I
Yeah.
brought this up because I think I've made my decision.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
It's-
and he was like, if that had been happening at the office, we would have like put a stop to it. But if he's just doing it at
Wow.
home, we
If
have
he's just,
no
like,
recourse.
Stealing company digital assets and then defacing them in his own time, that's okay.
Yeah,
I
well,
wonder, I
in
wonder
the
if there's any
story,
way
though.
that like they could have not known, and then he just made a shitty statement about it that was misquoted. You know what I mean?
well, part of the like
On the best,
insider-
the most optimistic way to look at it, I guess.
yeah, well, and the insider story of it is that that's like not the case. The insider story is that was happening at the workplace, and he was like actually egging them on and being like, "Yeah, haha, this is really funny," and like I can't remember who it was, but I think they were making the Black Lives Matter fellow, the actor, I can't remember his name, doing like Zig Heils and shit with his
Yes.
animation.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right.
Okay. And like, what's
So-
the disconnect there? Like, how can you be making a game about like how can you make a like maybe the game just isn't cyberpunk, you know what I mean? Like maybe it is not actually dealing with any of the issues and it's just like a veneer of cyberpunk.
Well, the demo that I played at PAX definitely seemed to be hitting all the right things as far as like he has an android who is slowly becoming aware that they are like have their own kind of free will in a sense, and I can see the way the story arc would probably play out. But I feel like there's just a basic sort of disconnect, inability to recognize the analogy, the obvious analogy with marginalized people. And if you, I don't know, if you don't recognize that, then I worry about like where you would take that in a narrative sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Austin Walker has been talking about it too and being like, this dude.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything he's said about it yet, but I should look that up.
Yeah.
That sucks. I guess it's like really easy. It's again like why genre bothers me is a thing. Like, because you can be like, well, here's all the trappings of this genre. You know, we've got it down, and it's completely miss the point. Like, totally miss the heart of what that genre might be about. You know, I don't know.
Well, yeah, as a genre is an artificial category that academics and other people put on things to talk about them in useful ways. So when people start designing, I guess, to the genre or playing to the genre rather than, I don't know, it gets tricky, I guess. Yeah.
It does. I mean, definitions and language are important, and categories are important, obviously. Like,
But categories are always nebulous and
yeah.
flexible, and we do with them what we will to think about things.
Yeah, I was listening, it's a small sidetrack. I was listening to this podcast, Switchblade Sisters, which is a lady who brings on a lady director, and they talk about a genre film. And it's really good. And someone was talking about The Witches of Eastwick today, the movie, the old, like from the, like with Jack Nicholson and Susan Sarandon. And the director was like talking about how, you know, because this movie was mid-genre, it was like half supernatural, but like half everyday relationship stuff. They didn't know how to categorize it, and so they actually tacked on all this action stuff so that they could call it an action movie. And how like basically you have to be a genre in Hollywood. Like if you're making a genre movie, you have to be a strict genre. You can't be anywhere in the middle. You can't be two genres together. Or like, you know, funding is messed up and it won't be as visible and like all this stuff. And I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah,
And
I mean, this is the Hollywood system, though. This is the problem with the kind of.
What's that?
This is the problem with the sort of mainstream Hollywood, like movie system, really, that it rewards things that fit into neat boxes that they think will make neat amounts of money, and if it seems like it's sort of half out of a box or doing something interesting, then you basically have to be doing it on the cheap on your own, or you have to be like David Lynch or someone like that, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like no in between, and like I feel like it's true in video games too, because video games emulate the Hollywood model and make more money than Hollywood now, actually.
Well, given Black Panther and Infinity War, we might want to like backpedal on that.
Yeah, the funny thing about Infinity War that I think is hilarious.
Are you gonna give a spoiler?
No. The funny thing about it is that it made more money in the opening weekend, like before Sunday, than the entire lifespan of Justice League in like one day.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know Justice League was out.
Because one of these companies knows how to make things.
Whoa, Mitch, you got really... For emphasis.
Serious business. All 6 eyes.
Yeah, I like the DCU joke in the Deadpool thing when he's like, "You're really dark. Are you part of the DCU?"
I am super looking forward to Deadpool 2. That's going to be so good. All right, I hope it's so good.
Yeah, it happens in genre fiction in books too, though, right? Like when China Melville was doing books, and the Sad Puppies were like, "No, you don't get to have a nebula because we can't understand if your book is clearly science fiction or fantasy."
Yeah.
So then he just won both anyway, right? So whatever. But
Even recently, that was an issue with Is This a Game for like Caitlin Bell's role-playing game that they submitted to whatever that award is.
Yeah, Nebula, same thing.
Yes, also the Nebulas. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Hey, submitted a game to the Nebulas?
Yeah, and it actually got submitted because it was championed by Nine Fox Gambit author.
Oh yeah, Yoon Ha Lee.
Yes, yeah. He kept petitioning them and fighting them on it to get it in there.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
yeah. It was,
Since his name has come up, Nine Fox Gambit, Raven Stratagem, super good, and Ann Leckie, super good. Okay, back to Cyberpunk.
yeah. Oh, and a cool thing happened to me the other day was somebody sent me their book for review for consuming Cyberpunk. So that was pretty cool. So I'm
Nice.
gonna read that after Autonomous, which I am reading right now, because it's a Canadian author, and I was all about that. Yeah, it's called New Clone City, and it's from it says Anglo Berliner. So I was like, okay, interesting and cool. So, yeah, that I was like, I'm a real person.
That's
I'm a
not the
real blogger.
qualification to be a real person.
Yeah.
Consuming Cyberpunk. That's your blog. Consuming.
Yeah, consumingcyberpunk.com, one word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was exciting. And it was at like 1 a.m. in the morning or something too, so I was like, whoa.
So, Fraser, did you talk about the thing that you were excited about?
Oh, I talked about the Red Strings Club. But
Okay, was
yeah,
that your
the
like,
book that I am reading right now, though, is the Autonomous, which is about. It's actually pretty cool. It's about 100 years in the future, I think. It takes place, a lot of it, at least, in Canada, and the technology is really well researched and really cool and interesting and descriptive. And it's about a person named Jack who's like a pirate who scans a bunch of these products called Zacuity, which makes people really good workers but highly addictive and starts making them really bad. And she feels really bad because she has pirated this pill and sent it to people. Like, she takes all these really expensive drugs, fabricates it herself, and then sells it for like cheaper price to the people that actually want it, that kind of stuff. One of them is stuff like Vibe, which makes people live a lot longer. So people are, like 150 years old and look like they're 30, and yada yada yada.
Right.
But at the same time as this is happening, a robot named Paladin and a ICP, which I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but they're like the police force basically, are tracking Jack. So you get that multiple storyline as it's going. And part of the Paladin storyline that's cool is that they're like slaved. They're not autonomous yet, but part of it is being anthropomorphic. I can never say it.
Anthropomorphic.
Yeah. But this
Greek skills.
Yeah. The partner of Paladin is projecting onto Paladin a gender, and they don't know how to feel about it. And when Paladin finds out that the brain within them is female, then the partner's relieved and wants to have sex and all this stuff. So it's kind of got that Ghost in the Shell 2 vibes with dolls and projecting our shit onto them and stuff like that. I'm about 2/3 through it, and it's been pretty cool. It's a fast read. It's only 300 pages and fairly big typeface. So
Nice. Did you say that was called Anonymity?
Autonomous.
Autonomous. Okay.
Yeah.
We had a question
sounds
about
awesome.
that in the
Yeah.
chat.
Published by Tor by a female Canadian writer.
Cool. So on that note, actually, if anyone in the chat has any questions or things that you want to bring up for us to discuss, just throw them up in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess our what were our three things, vacuum flowers, autonomous, and dirty computer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are pretty good, and a good I don't know, it's a good range from this 1980 whatever book, which of course I'm reading stereotypically, to the modern fiction, and then the super the just released video. That's nice.
Yeah, I really like that the Janelle Monáe thing is a whole new type of media, at least as far as I'm aware. Like I never had heard of the Beyonce's thing on this, so this whole way of expressing content and a kind of musical album I've never experienced it or heard of it or seen it.
Man. So is this the first time you've heard of a concept album, Fraser?
No, I've heard of a concept album, but it seems different that it's like on YouTube and it has like a storyline and it's a video and then also an album and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's very like millennial, right? Like it's intersectional with all these things, so it can get like the most amount of people interested in it and stuff. But at the same time, the content is like, I do what I want, right?
Yeah, so that's one of my questions actually. Do you know the answer to this, Kira? Is it her thing to flip the bird in every one of her videos?
Oh, I don't know actually. Does she do that in every video?
Every one
in
that
Dirty
she
Computer?
released for Dirty Computer before the Emotion Picture came out, she did. And I haven't watched everything in the Emotion Picture sufficiently, but I definitely remember a couple. So now I'm gonna have to watch them all again and her previous work to see if like her signature move is like, which is a good signature move. It's
I
given
think,
the content.
I think it's more of a gay thing, to be honest. Like, so Janelle Monáe also came out as queer this week, and I mean, like
In that video.
thought any different, but
Yeah.
you know, in the one video, Pink, which is basically a celebration of vaginas and girl sex, like there's a lot of that's where the most middle fingers are, and it makes me think that it's actually more about sex than it is about like fuck you, you know what I
Right.
mean? But in the whole album, there are a lot of metaphors. Like there's a whole song about sex and power and how we're all being screwed.
Yeah, that's
and-
such a good song.
yeah.
We're all fucked, so let's fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Fuck people who are in power who are gonna kill us all. Let's just have a bunch of sex.
I love if anybody out there has seen the video for Pink but hasn't seen the full Dirty Computer, then definitely. I mean, you should watch it anyway, but watch it if only for the additional like spoken word add-on in the middle of
Yes.
Pink, because
Yes. Also, it involves Tessa Thompson, who is perfect in every way.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't think that they are the first people to make like I believe David Bowie and Michael Jackson, like people previously had made the Beatles had made movies that were an album, but I don't think that they made them accessible in quite the same way that these are. Like, you know, they weren't on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, and you could see them in theaters, but you couldn't see them like on your TV, like that type of thing. So I don't know. It's new and not new. It's new in the way I think that it's being propagated.
yeah, it's definitely like a great example of her using all of the available 21st century technology to do her own new like expression within drawing together a bunch of strands from previously existing media or styles.
Yeah, and Prince was her mentor, and you know, Purple Rain is definitely one of these movie things that does that. So I think it's really clever how they incorporate all the music videos into one thing, because they basically like use it as like bring up this memory, like all the music videos are a memory that Janelle Monáe has, and then they like have to delete the memory. It's a clever way to work it into like one long narrative.
Yeah, and it totally works. Like I think that has the potential to be really cheesy and to be kind of like jarring, but because I think she conceptualized the entire thing in that way from the beginning, like it all totally works. And you could see how it would like string together even before the main Emotion Picture came out. So
Absolutely.
super love it.
Yeah, so good. Anyway.
Somebody in chat I'd like to hear about indigenous sci-fi and futurism.
Ooh.
So
I would too.
well,
there's the Wachowski siblings movie where they travel through time, and one of those is indigenous future. You know what I'm talking about?
Cloud Atlas?
What?
Cloud Atlas?
Yeah, Cloud
Oh,
Atlas.
Cloud Atlas. Yeah.
That's further specialization, I
Yes.
think, isn't it?
That's not traveling, Kira. Those are
Well,
different.
one of the things is an indigenous feature, and that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, for literary wise, the only one that I'm aware of, Misha does. Bruce Sterling actually said that she's the only one that he's aware of that does cyberpunk poetry as well. You can get her book at I can't remember what the publishing house is, but it's like still in the 90s when you go there and try to order the book. It is like barely got graphics. But also her book Red Spider White Web is amazing, and it is a complete like condemnation of capitalism taking apart and commodifying art. And one of the characters is like indigenous character who makes like a very specific kind of art, and it's very like visceral in the actual sense of the term, like blood and guts and dirt and shit. Like she goes through more shit in the first 5 pages of the book than most like typical white protagonists, and she's literally just trying to get a piece of coffee, and she almost gets like, or not a piece of coffee, but like some coffee, and like
Just left your joke. Coffee comes in pieces.
yeah, it ends up like almost getting raped and having to like break somebody's nose and fuck them up and shit, and then that's like the start of the movie.
Wow.
Of the book. And like there's like these really interesting prose interspersed between the chapters that are from the perspective of a serial killer throughout it, who are targeting marginalized and disenfranchised people. And it's always told in such a way that you are the killer when you're reading it. So it's like your hands wrap around their neck and stuff. So it's like forcing you to become complicit in the narrative as the killer as you're reading it and stuff.
That's
It's very good.
What's that called?
Red Spider White Web, and you can get it really cheap in the U.S. It only ships to U.S. residents, and it's like $12.50 or something for the book, brand new, first print run, still. Yeah, and there is also recently I heard about indigenous prose that were cyberpunk as well, like brand new, like just last month or something like that, but I cannot remember the author.
Someone in the chat, Basil Gilda, says "Walk the Red Road" by Misha Noga.
No, it's just
That's
Misha.
different. Okay.
I'll get a link.
Okay.
Cool. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to see more indigenous cyberpunk.
Seriously.
I mean, there's definitely like indigenous characters in cyberpunk things I can think of, but not like with, like the meaningful themes that would be like culturally important to like an indigenous story.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I'm sort of thinking about with I'm writing an article on Shadowrun, and inspired by I think her name is pronounced Dia Lakina on Twitter, who wrote a piece on Dragons Conquer America. In which she talked about Shadowrun. She used that as her like lead in and intro and outro, and it was a really interesting way of thinking about a game that is like significantly problematic, both in terms of its inherited fantasy baggage of essentializing races, but also in terms of the way that it deals with indigenous people, but also puts the indigenous people of North America in a really powerful position in the narrative, and thus sort of allows space for players to play in that realm, which is a really like interesting tension, which I don't think I really thought of when I was playing it, but looking back on it now, it's fascinating.
Yeah, you can get it for $12 with shipping, and I just put the link in the chat.
Nice.
And the cover is like super sick looking as well, like very 80s, like superhero-ish.
I did not realize that your Twitch handle was Canadian Soy Sauce.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Actually, there's like a very bad story about that, which is like kind of funny. When I was in high school, my handle was soyo sauce, not because it's not spelt right, it's soyo sauce. And it's because I
Oh
was
yeah.
super into anime, and soyo is like, it means that's right. So it's that's right sauce. So you can, it's very much like I was a dick. So, yeah. So,
How
yeah.
the joy of inherited handles from high school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I still have one. Hamish, I think that there is. I remember reading when the new Shadowrun game came out, like 2 years ago, maybe. That I feel like someone had written an article about them being Native American and how they felt very empowered by the Shadowrun game and playing a Native American and like just how they were portrayed, even though it was somewhat problematic. Like at least they were there.
Is that when Anarchy came out? The
I'm
kind
not
of cut
sure.
down?
They
'Cause-
might have
Yeah.
they might have written it when Anarchy came out, but I think they were talking about the original. I remember reading that.
If
Yeah, it
you
was a-
could find the link, or if anyone out there could find the link for that, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah,
That
that's
would be
super
super useful.
relevant to your article.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, totally. I think that's really interesting because like I really empathize with that perspective. Like I'm white, but I'm always drawn to, you know, like the reason I was drawn to Ghost in the Shell because there's a lady character. You know, like it might be somewhat problematic, but at least there's a lady there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how sometimes that's all that it takes. And like really, like in my young mind, I didn't know that's what was happening, but it was happening. And like how I don't know, like it's that simple. Like actually, representation really matters that much.
Yeah.
Well, like for me, when I was watching that show, the Canadian cyberpunk show that I really like,
Almost Human?
dang, what is it called? It's
Is it the time one?
yeah, the time one with the main character's name is Kira.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
Continuum.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, just
It's
the
actually
fact.
kind of good.
I love it. I thought it was so damn good. It was like, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best cyberpunk TV show that I've seen.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, especially throughout the entire arc of the 4 seasons, like the stuff that they go into and the diversity of the cast. Even the only thing that kind of sucked was they made the like the big black guy the bad guy in the season 1, of course, right? But then they actually correct it later when they were like, "Oh, that's not the best." But yeah, I thought it was great. But the big thing with that with me, and it's such a small thing, is just that Vancouver is actually Vancouver.
Yeah.
And it was like such a big thing for me. I was like, oh, Canadian cyberpunk, and it's like taking place in Vancouver, and it has like a futuristic Vancouver with its actual problems that area actually has. And I was like, whoa, I'm invested.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, even a place. I was really extra particular about The Wire because I grew up in Philly and Baltimore is basically like it's very close, and so I felt a lot of those issues personally. Like my stepdad knows some of the actors who were in The Wire and like all this. Yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting how places can really draw you in the same way characters can too.
I had that about Dirty Computer pretty early on, actually, because I think in the second song they're on a rooftop and it's the Los Angeles skyline in the background, slightly disguised, but it was like when you live in LA for a while, you know all the tricks that they use to try and disguise it. And so I was like, yes, LA, now I'm looking out for it.
Nice. Yeah, it is like you were saying, it's interesting that such small things are such big buy-in, but big box companies just like still don't get it. Like Black Panther, right? When they were like, "Whoa, how is this making so much money?"
Yeah.
Place is super important.
Yeah.
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 That didn't end up being something that I really focused on in the Shadowrun article, but I like could see another one on the importance of place in cyberpunk. That's certainly one of the things that I am like always thinking about, as is probably evident by the fact that the first supplement for the Sprawl was all about different places, and I'm all about like the globalness of it.
Yeah. Place is really important in cyberpunk because culture is so important in cyberpunk.
Yeah.
So like where you are is actually really like extra relevant to like whatever futuristic metaphor you're making it about. And I think that makes it sometimes clunky in role-playing games. I'm trying to figure it out with Sync right now. Like, how can I put all this stuff in but not have it too front-loaded?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And like, I actually have a move in Sync that is like it's like you need to pause. It's called pause. You need to look around you and describe something. You know, describe architecture or describe something neon or describe something in the rain or you know, an object nearby.
Nice.
I think the setting is it's just so important. Like half of Owen Gibson book is describing objects in places.
Yeah. Lately in my PBTA space that I've been designing, I have moves like that as well, where you'll be able to take +1 forward if you tell me about stuff around you. Like kind of similar to Johnstone's Wayfarer move, where it's like if you get to a new port, tell the MC when you were here last, and they'll tell you how it's changed since.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
I like that. Yeah, Bruce Sterling said about cyberpunk spaces. I'm 50-50 on Bruce Sterling, but he said that when you're describing something cyberpunk, imagine that you are in a foreign land and you don't know like why the toilets are flushed in the wrong way or how to open doors because the doorknobs are in the wrong place. And you know, like it's the small things that affect your everyday environment and you know, basically in a big way affect your interaction with the world. I thought that was a really cool way of thinking about setting in cyberpunk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of really interesting thoughts on little things like that, little like genre-y things or writing things. He did there was this like 1-day cyberpunk conference at USC when I was still there. What's this, 2014 or something? And he was like the keynote speaker, and his like manifesto like speech thing is on YouTube, I think, and it's pretty good for just like a kind of like him talking cyberpunk for an hour or so, and talking about like because one of the things of the conference was the future of cyberpunk, so him talking about like how that might interrelate with and relate to the various other speakers that had come before him.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I think I've seen that. Does he talk about writing cyberpunk and he's talking about like complexifying sentences and jamming lots of words?
Yep. He talks about like jamming things and eyeball kicks.
Eyeball kicks.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, if you watch that video, try and spot me in the audience because I'm there.
Okay. Sweet.
There is no prize associated with this competition, just the satisfaction.
Yeah, if you spot Hamish, you will be invited to watch us next time.
We'll invite you to an exclusive global event. I mean, well, to be fair, I'd invite you to all sorts of things. I mean, I wouldn't pay for you to get there, but I'd invite you. You're welcome to come and hang out at this bar that has lots of neon in it.
Seems legit.
I want to go to that bar in the UK. There's like, isn't there a cool bar in London that's like very cyberpunk? I can't remember what it's called. But it's like Cyberdog, maybe.
Huh? I have not heard of it. There's this little dive bar in Echo Park in Los Angeles that is totally dark on the inside except for blue neon, and I kind of love it. They do some like really good PBR and tequila combo, which is not very cyberpunk, but it's also not cyberpunk.
Not yeah. Especially if you've seen Muted, where they're like missing the point. It still bugs me. I'm like, why did you make this so pretty if you're gonna be so dumb?
Oh, are you talking about Mute, the movie on Netflix? Yeah. Yeah. It was even very obviously a gay bar. Like there were queer people in the cast in that bar, and I was like, and people of color. I was like, oh my god, this is a great bar. And it's like, why is this so stupid?
Well, and also he's like a dick in it too, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, like he's in this very cool bar, and then he just starts being a dick because he has to white knight with some girl who like may or may not care about him. We're not sure throughout the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem. That's okay.
Yeah. Not to mention its condemnation of tech while like glorifying it the whole time. I'm like, how do you feel about it actually though? Because you guys are like,
Yeah. I feel like anything that is like futuristic or cyberpunk that is tech negative is doing it wrong. Like I feel that's partially my own feelings. Like I think I'm very tech positive. I think it's a good tool and the internet is great and we're doing better things because of it all the time. Technology is important for our survival. Like even if you're talking about old tech, like trains or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, like stuff like Mute, where it's like condemning the tech, or like Black Mirror, where it's like I'm just kind of, I don't know how to. I like the horror, but I'm also like, I don't really like your tech negativity.
I mean, from a perspective of like a historical perspective, I guess, like early cyberpunk is really about like the first kind of tensions between, like ubiquitous technology and
globalization
and people, right? And the way that technology is penetrating our spaces and penetrating our bodies, and there's this kind of like tension and fear about it, which I think by now is either consciously or unconsciously gone away because I have the internet in my hand, in a way that was not the case in the 80s. And I certainly think like it was a deliberate decision in the Sprawl not to make cyberware like a negative thing in the same way that it is in Cyberpunk 2020 and Shadowrun, where it
like
directly detracts from your humanity or your bodily like essence. Right, so I think that's definitely a change that we can see in like our generation of cyberpunk role-playing creators versus that 80s influenced one. So I agree with you philosophically, but I think it is very in genre. It's just not where the genre has gone.
That's a real good point. I just got schooled.
No, but I agree though. Like I don't think like a tech negative way is like I don't know.
No, yeah, like I think it's cyberpunk. It's just tone deaf cyberpunk, right? Like they're still like, hey, this is the way things are still, right? And you're like, yeah, it's 25 years later, catch up. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's an attitude that assumes that everything is fine and good, and technology is only going to make things worse, rather than seeing the kind of liberatory potential of technology, which is I think what
or at least making it neutral. Right? Like a lot of cyberpunk now makes it neutral, and it's a thing that both good and bad forces use, and that's what contributes to the moral ambiguity of some of the characters. Even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's to me, it's an accessibility issue. It's more like people with money control the technology.
Absolutely.
Or we only have cell phones because we're mining in Africa and shit like that. So, I think it's more about ethical uses of technology, and it's funny because it's just like as humans we don't want to like the printing press was evil, and there's like that one, how everyone's always complaining about looking down at their cell phones, and like there's a picture of everyone looking down at a newspaper on a train, and like how technology is always the same. It's just like different types of technology and depending on the time period you're in, and how no one ever wants to accept it.
yeah. The example I always think about when people bring up the like, oh, we're looking at the cell phones, blah blah blah, technology is making us stupid. Socrates complained about people writing.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
I love that one too.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh man, like. Yeah, it's a through line.
Yeah.
It's generally always the really smart people who are doing it, which is funny, right? Like, the people that self-proclaim that they are quite smart, and so he's funny too, Fraser.
All right, well, we've been going for about an hour and a half now. Do we have any kind of like final thoughts, or does anybody have any final things they want to bring up in the chat?
I feel like ending on a tech positive note is a pretty good note to end on.
Yeah. I
also,
think so.
Also, if you don't like technology, stop wearing glasses and stop getting vaccinated, and we'll see how you do.
Stop driving a car. Stop living in a house.
Yeah, like AC. We are all cyborgs. Watch the video.
Yeah.
So
Bye.
yeah, I guess we'll be. When are we doing the next one? Are we going again on Friday? Is that what, or is it? I don't know. We have a schedule. We'll let you all know. Hopefully next time there'll be fewer technical difficulties, because technology is the worst, except when it's the best.
And we might tell people more than 4 hours beforehand.
It's possible.
It's
Might
cool.
happen.
It's cool. I actually
Look,
forgot
it's
to
like
do
it's like a pop-up thing. It's like a pop-up. Boom! Surprise stream. Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
trendy.
Monday fun.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but sure. Yeah.
I've almost got the date. I'm so close.
I'm looking too.
You almost got what?
It's like in our Discord. Oh no.
May 14th.
Oh, you got it first.
May 14th. Okay, so 2 weeks. I thought there was one
Yeah.
where we were somehow going in like twice in a week or something.
It's the 14th and the 18th.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So next time it'll be like a bracketing the week double feature thing.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm like always there, I think, or something. So
You're always there. You just hang out, like just constantly, like looking at the computer, waiting for the little light to come on your camera.
yeah. Now that I work from home, people are just like able to talk to me. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I hear that. Thanks for hosting, Hamish.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Tell everybody who you are.
Oh, I'm Kira. You can find me on Twitter at Kira Nanzi. KiraNansi. It's like Kira and Anansi together. And
Is your
yeah,
name a
I have-
Skunk Anansi reference, by the way?
What's that?
Is that a Skunk Anansi reference, by the way?
It's just Anansi. Yeah, I learned about Anansi. It's a high school handle when I was young, and I loved it. And I was like, this spider god is the best thing that ever existed.
Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, nice.
Yeah, so different Anansi. I don't know which one you were talking about.
There's a band I think from the '90s called Skunk Anansi.
No, no, I don't know who that is.
I will send you a link. I'll try and find it, see if it's spelled the same, and send you a link. Every time I see your Twitter handle, I think of that anyway.
I love it. I would love to be in a band in the 90s.
I seem to remember they were pretty cool. They were alternative. It's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Wasn't like a Spice Girls spin-off that wasn't very popular or anything like that. Spice Girls
That's
rule.
fine. I would like that too.
Yeah, Fraser.
I'm Fraser. You can reach me on Twitter at Fraser Simons, pretty much everywhere except for here, where I am a shitty Canadian soy sauce username. Also, for anyone listening to this later, if I put this on podcast form or whatever, and I am stupid and didn't put it in the show notes, it's wordcraftoforegon.com/speculative to get the Red Spider White Web book, and you should all get it. Make it sell out.
Nice. And I just realized that I was playing the wrong music because I'm
Oh no.
terrible.
You're doing it. It's
Yeah,
fine.
technology. I'm the best. It's the best. Wait. Yeah, so I'm Hamish Cameron. You can find me at Peregrine Kiwi on Twitter and the Sprawl_RPG also on Twitter, and Ardennes Luteray also on Twitter. And here on twitch.tv/Peregrine Kiwi, where technical difficulties abound, and some of the time you can hear some of us.
Well,
So
most
thanks
of it,
for.
they can hear you.
Was that?
Most of it they could hear you. It's
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm gonna have to listen to the. At least I'm pretty sure that it all would have recorded locally. So if it didn't, if some of it didn't make it to the stream, then I can always upload to YouTube a fresh copy. Yeah. So you've been watching Cybershock. It's actually Cybershock 002 because I forgot to change the label because it turns out that 15 minutes isn't really enough lead up time to get this show working. But, say la vie.
I'm cyber shook.
Yeah.
I'm cyber shocked. Which is just the name, really.
I'm cyber something.
Cyber sweet.
You're cyber volleyball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing.
I'm actually pretty good at volleyball, so.
Is that how we'll have our cyberpunk designer battle on the volleyball
Sure.
court? The sanded square.
I
As
can
it were.
strike pretty good. I can
Mano,
strike pretty
oiled Mano.
good. Yeah, sure.
Let me work out where my transitions are so we can ease us out of this sad and tragic end to an otherwise excellent conversation. All right, goodbye everybody. Transitioning, Fraser fades into nothingness, and so do our voices, like some sort of echo in time.
Or tears in the rain.
Tears in the rain. Shit.
Tears in the rain.
Tears in the rain.